Let's Talk Assets podcast. My name is Chris A. Williams, and I'm joined by my co-host,
Giovanni Paradise.
Y'all, today we have another change in scenery because we have a very, very special guest. We have Rhyan Finch, entrepreneur, businessman, and real estate mogul. Rhyan, how you doing today?
Hey, man. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Very excited about having you on the podcast, man. A lot of people know you in the industry, both locally here in Virginia Beach and across the country. With First Class Real Estate and all the great things that it has done. But let's go back in time, take a trip down memory lane. What was life like for you, Rhyan, in high school, and what was your dreams and ambitions during high school?
It was interesting. Back in high school, I actually just took my son back to where I grew up. So I grew up in an apartment that me and my mom and my stepdad lived in, and it was about the size of this living room. And so I took him over there. I showed him. We went fishing in the back, and we got caught on a bunch of snags. He was devastated. He was like, "Let's get out of here." So, but anyway, in high school, I was really skinny. I didn't have a lot of weight to me. I was really a late bloomer, I guess we could call it. But I liked business and sales, and so I ended up buying gum at Walmart. You could get like a 4-pack for 88 cents, and then I would sell each pack for 50 cents at school. And so, I started doing business, pretty early on. So,
take us to senior year. What was Ryan's mindset? You're in high school. What did you want to do? What was post high school look like for you?
So getting to senior year, I'm playing football. I did the minimum classes needed to get through. And so I was done I was done midway through the day. I was working at like Food Lion or Farm Fresh. I'm not sure which one at that time. So I would leave school and go straight to work. And then I would either come back later that afternoon for practice or something like that, and then do football practice. And then that was kind of my day. I was just going to school. One of the classes I had that was a minimum was like PE. So I did the bare minimum to get through, to have it so I could just play football, baseball, wrestle, and stuff like that. And I really wasn't focused on anything. When the time came and I graduated, I was 17 when I graduated. I didn't have any hopes of any college. My grades were bad. We didn't have the money to do that. So that wasn't an option for me. So my granddad worked in a plumbing union, and so he got me a job in there and in an apprenticeship school.
So you became a plumber right out of high school.
Yep, Yeah, I actually had to wait until my 18th birthday to even be able to go on the base. They wouldn't give me an ID, so when I had to wait until August before I could even start the job. So I had started a couple of days before that, but I just sat around the shop and waited because I wasn't old enough to get on base.
Mm-hmm. So there was no one really in your family that said, "Hey, Ryan, go to college. Hey, Ryan, be an entrepreneur." Like, there was no kind of pressure. You kind of were self-directed.
Yeah, my mom, both my aunts were in the optical field. My grandma was a stay-at-home mom, and then my granddad was in that field. And then my aunts weren't married, and nothing of that sort was an option. And then my mom was married. My stepdad did painting, and that just really wasn't the forte for me.
Yeah,
oh, absolutely.
So when it came to being a plumber, what were some of the valuable lessons you feel like you learned?
I really didn't fit in. So like I was the type that liked to be clean. So when I would go do construction work, I wore a white t-shirt, and when I went home at the end of the day, it was still white. And people were like, "How?" And I'm just like, I don't know. I just don't like to get dirty. I would just maneuver my way around. There were days when you kind of had to get dirty, but I wasn't the type that, like, even when I built something with my hands, it wasn't pretty. It was like they could do work with plumbing and it would look nice and, be presentable. It wasn't for me. Like whatever it was, everything I did just felt sloppy. No matter how hard I tried, it just didn't work out to be, it just wasn't for me.
And walk us through, how long were you a plumber?
So I did 5 years in that apprenticeship. So I did that 5 years. And then after the final year, you become what's called a journeyman. And I did that. And once I did that, I did 1 year of that. And then that's when I jumped cold turkey into real estate.
So what made you make the shift? You're a plumber, high school education, no real background or pressure on you. How do you go from being a plumber into real estate?
My aunt ended up getting a job at Liberty Tax, a franchise business. And when she went there, one of the books they recommended was Rich Dad Poor Dad. So she gave me at the age of, I don't know, 19 or 20, the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. Now I had bought a house. So I went after I graduated high school and I got that job, I became homeless. So I didn't have a house. So I lived with one of my aunts for about 30 days, and then I went into low-income housing. So I was doing plumbing, going to school at night, and living in low-income housing. And I saved up my money, and I ended up buying a house. And so at 19, I bought my first house. And then that house grew in value because you can imagine this is, 2000, right? So it's right before there was a big spike in values, which I didn't know that was going to happen, but it happened, right? And then I read Rich Dad Poor Dad in 2000, and so then I bought another house. And so when I bought another house and another house, and so I ended up like 3 houses on the plumbing job because the plumbing job was a steady income, and then I could qualify, then I could rent it out and then buy another one and rent it out and buy another one. And so I kept doing that over and over again. And that's what gave me the foundation. But then when I was buying them, I said, well, man, I can get a commission on this. And I learned kind of about the real estate game. Then I said, okay, well, then I'm just going to do that because I can make my own schedule. I can do what I want, and then I can make as much as I want was kind of the thing. Because the other one, as hard as I worked as a plumber, I'd go home exhausted and the money was still the money, and I had a daughter, and, having a daughter, I had to pick her up or drop her off early in the morning. I'd drop her off. I had to be to work at 7. So I had to drop her off at a daycare. I was like, this isn't sustainable. I'm not going to be able to go to her plays and things like that. And so that was a driving force as well for me to say, I got to change something.
So it wasn't just the money. It was family. It was time. You had a bigger purpose other than, hey, I want to do this because I want to become a gazillionaire.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't hurt to see, Lonnie driving around in the Cadillac Escalade to the church, softball team, so, but just being at church, so you're 20 years old, you've bought a couple houses, you're reading Rich Dad Poor Dad, you've got a kid, and you're in church, and it's just like all those things kind of fell in line for the right situation. So Lonnie's there at the church softball, and I would have never met him if I wasn't in church, and so meet him, and then I'm like, hey, what do you do? And he tells me about real estate, and I've already bought a couple houses, so it kind of just all came together at that time.
You're talking about Lonnie Bush.
Yeah, Lonnie.
That's so funny, Chris. You know Lonnie Bush, don't you?
Yeah, that's where I started. My real
He's
estate
good.
career.
He's good.
Yeah,
He helped me get started.
It's a small world.
He was great for me.
Or he's a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So shout out to Lonnie Bush.
Definitely. Shout out to Lonnie.
And, so you got into real estate. How old were you when you got into real estate?
I was 25.
25.
How was that first year? Tell us about your first year in real estate.
Well, so that was coming into 2006. So right before the big crash of it. So I had a couple months where it went well, did leads. And, it's hard because you learn that the people you knew that know you as a plumber are not thinking, let me trust you with your home real estate. But I'm thinking everyone's going to trust me because I own more homes than they do. So like the people that I'm like, I know real estate. I own homes. I rent them out. And, so I know how to do real estate, but they didn't, and for whatever reason, ended up having strangers become my clients. And so, I made a lot of friends and relationships doing it that way. It was funny because I went from plumbing and I wanted to be clean to turn around and you're wearing a suit, but I didn't have any suits. My best friend Jazz, his dad gave me some suits to wear. And so they were like all too big and all old and outdated, but it was better than wearing, jeans and a t-shirt. And I didn't have the money because you're quitting your income to go bet on getting an income. I didn't really have the money to do it.
This is back when suits were a thing because, a lot of people, suits aren't a thing no more.
Yeah, no, I know. People don't wear them anymore. So
awesome. So you got into real estate. Did you have a clear goal or a vision in mind when you first started?
I just wanted to be able to pay the bills. So as long as I had time and could pay the bills, that was it. If I could sell a house, that was great. What's crazy to me is I remember meeting with my pastor, Ray, and he said, you really need to think about this, because you're going from making money and you've got a daughter to take care of and these mortgages to pay, and you need to really consider this, knowing that he came from that industry and knew that was a challenge, and he knew it was a risk. And I stupidly was like, what do you think? What do you know? I'll show you, I'm going to go in there and do it. It didn't even dawn on me failure was an option. Does that make you like not succeeding? it didn't even cross my mind. You think you're invincible.
Yeah.
And it was like having that stupidity is essentially what gave me the opportunity to be able to move forward. So
So you kind of risked it all. You had everything on the line
Yeah.
at this point.
yeah, I did.
High reward.
Yeah. Yeah, but I didn't know that either, right? Like, it's like easy when you look back and you're telling a story of how something goes, but I know me. Remember, I was a late bloomer. So, you're a late bloomer in school, and then you turn around, you're not much more rapidly growing in the plumbing industry because you're in a construction site. Nobody's talking about managing money or business or real estate or anything like that. So, you're just going through the motions. You're just living a life of going through motions and just going, there's got to be something more. I got to do something more. I'm designed for something more than this. And so that driving force of saying, well, if they can do it, I can do it. If somebody can do it, if it can be done, then I can do it and I'll figure it out, and just knowing that part and betting on yourself to figure it out.
Yeah.
At what point did you add someone to your life as far as
man.
real estate?
It was it's funny because I started with Lonnie and I was doing real estate and I was doing good and I was doing well, and I had these rentals, and this it comes full cycle. It's funny, but I had these rentals and I said, hey, I've got these rentals, I need to manage them. And he's like, yeah, we don't allow people to manage rentals while they're on the team. So you need to pass those over to the property management department. I was like, no, I do my own rentals. They're my houses. I'm not like doing it for somebody else. He's like, yeah, but if I let you, then everybody can go in to do it. And I was like, that makes sense. I said, well, what's my other options? And he's like, well, the company, you can go on your own and be an independent, agent on your own, and then you can manage your own stuff. But in that case, you'll get more commission, but you have to now do your own deals. And so it was because of those rentals that I said, well, forget it then. All right, I'm going to go on my own. And so then I pushed out on my own and started the Rhyan Finch real estate team. But the Rhyan Finch real estate team consisted of just Rhyan Finch. So that was it. And then I hired an assistant. And so I hired a girl that worked at the closing company because I just did deals with her and worked with her so much that I was like, hey, why don't you come over? She was ready to get out of there. And so she came over and she helped me. But now I'm working and now I've got to pay all the expenses and living expenses and her. So now I'm working to pay her essentially what was going on. So then we ended up hiring a couple agents and I brought them in. They were friends of the family, kind of thing. And they came in and, you think, well, just go do it. Go do what I do. I had no leadership skills, no systems, no processes. Them not succeeding is as much their fault as it is mine because they didn't do what needed to be done, because that's kind of how real estate is set up, that it's sink or swim. And at the same time, I didn't give them much opportunity or chance because it was sink or swim, And so, they should have thought through that better, to go through a company where you see, I'm joking, where I'm like, it's their fault as much as mine, because they didn't go to a place that had training, that had the systems in place, that had the success record of bringing people in. They came in just kind of trusting me. And again, I didn't know what I was doing. So, I meant well, but I couldn't help them because I didn't have the stuff in place.
Yeah. So like you said, you started in real estate just to pay your bills, right? And then you branched out making your own real estate team, real estate company, just so you can manage your rentals. Where did that mindset shift come in? Where it's like, okay, instead of just focusing on my individual self, how do I become a business now? Like, where did you learn that mindset?
Not business. It's funny to say it because I know what a business is. When you say it, and now I'm trying to translate that back to then, and I'm going, a business. I had no idea what I was doing. So like, when did I go into a business? So like, it happened. You kind of you get beat down, and then you've got to figure out what is a business and what's that look like. And now knowing the difference between a business, being self-employed, and being a business owner is, I'm very much more a business owner now. Back then I was self-employed, so which again, I had to go to work to pay the admin. I had to go to work to pay the rent. I had to do the work, and when I was bringing people in, I wasn't thinking of them as driving in business. I thought of it more as ego-based. It was more ego-based. I'm adding, someone works for me, kind of thing, instead of it's a business. They should come in, they should make a certain amount of money. The business makes an amount of money, and then that's covering an expense and leaves a profit. And so that didn't come till way later. I ended up getting into a lot of short sales, and I listed like 20 houses in a month. And so, but listing houses, as most people in real estate know, is you don't bring in any money when you're listing houses. They have to sell. So I'd bring them in and lose them because I was just bringing them in and ended up with like 100 listings at one point. A couple would sell here and there, but I spent more time just moving paperwork around than I was actually closing deals. So that was a big eye-opening thing to me, is that being busy wasn't necessarily better than producing income. And so doing one deal making money was better than listing 100 homes and none of them selling. And so, but what we see in our industry is a lot of people like to brag, right? So I could brag that I had 100 listings, and you're like, yeah, but how much money did you make? And so once you get to that business level, you start looking at it saying, well, how much is the business making? And if you're building a business, how much business are you growing that business and that revenue?
Yeah, I love that. So what you're effectively saying is to kind of be more focused on dollar productive activities. Don't do it for the why, right? I guess is more so what you're saying.
Well, you want to scale the income. You want to scale the revenue that's coming in, and it will come with new challenges. So if you were to get business and you're generating revenue and the revenue is going up, then you have to allocate those funds. It's not like revenue comes up and you're like, okay, I just made more money, I can put it in my pocket, right? And so instead you've got, okay, well, now that's going to cause mission critical problems. Like, okay, we did this amount of business with this amount of leads. Now we have to do something new. We did this amount of business and we had this support staff. Well, now we need more, right? And then you do more, but then Jan quits, right? She takes a job somewhere else, or she gets pregnant, or she relocates, or any of that stuff happens. Those are all the things you're kind of navigating and dealing with, but you can't do it when you're in the middle of it. And so you've got to be able to set those systems up and then start scaling it and then start looking ahead. And I say this to a lot of people, and you've probably heard it a million times, but it's the only real hockey player I know is Wayne Gretzky. He's like, skate to where the puck is going, not where it's at. And too many times we're sitting there, back and forth where it's at, and we need to be focused on where the market's going.
So during this journey in real estate, Ryan, take us through chronologically. What year is this as you started to scale up? Hired the assistant.
2007 was when it was 1 year on Lonnie's team, and then 2007. So it was great timing. I was like, if you're going to go on your own, do it right before the crash.
Talk to us about the crash. How'd you survive?
Well, it opened up opportunities with short sales, but then what happened is, when I was about to die, I was interviewing for jobs to go take a job making $30,000 a year somewhere, because I was just like, I can't keep losing this amount of money, which I wasn't tracking, so I don't even actually know how much I was losing. I was just losing. I was just drawing lines of credit, going into more and more debt. And so I ended up selling one of my properties, and it made a profit, and then I paid off some other stuff. And so then I was like, all right, cut up the credit cards, never again. And then sorry,
this is 09, right?
Yeah.
08, 09?
Yeah, 08, 09 timeframe. But then in 09 is when I landed the big Fannie Mae account. And then I got Fannie Mae, and then I scaled that nationwide. And so that was just a huge, huge win for me. But it also showed me, once Fannie Mae didn't want to do REOs with me as I became like an outsource company. All the Fannie Mae stuff came to me, and then I dispersed it out. They're like, no, we want to go to individual markets. So they restructured my business for me. And I was like, I don't like that. I don't ever want anyone to be able to come in and dictate how my business can operate. And so
so back against the wall, credit cards, everything to kind of keep the business afloat. You're even at one point contemplating throwing the cards in.
Yeah, just taking a job of, like, I mean, it's funny to say it now because you're looking back on it and you'd say, well, that was probably going to be a poor decision or whatever. Like, to me, it wouldn't even have thought of it as being failure. Isn't that weird? Like, you would look at it now and go, well, you quit. You went and took something else, and you gave up, or whatever it is. And that didn't even cross my mind, and I only say that because I know there's got to be people out there that are contemplating changing or doing something else, and they're not thinking of it as quitting. They're thinking of it as survival. And, I don't know what it was. Just one thing just goes right. And then you just need one thing to go right, and you just keep building on that. I remember, and I'll kind of never forget this. But my wife, I got married, and I'm again still in suits, and I'm going to meet with people, and I just have this whole facade of, you listed 100 houses, and you got this team of these agents, and now everything's going to hell in a handbasket on the back end, but nobody knows that except her. And then and she's flourishing, she's just taking off, and she goes, Ryan, why don't you just go sell a house? It was like, so remember, I had already had success. I'd sold like 30 houses in the first year. I go build this team of this business, and now it starts curtailing down. And so she's like, well, why don't you just go sell a house? Because you can make the money. So instead of gallivanting around in your suit and, being the team leader or whatever, just swallow your pride and go sell a house. And so, And I still remember it because I was sitting in the Starbucks right by Rosemont Road when she said it, when I was getting ready to walk into another meeting. And so that's just always stuck with me ever since then. And so I know it's good advice, at least it was for me, to reset, go back, get the foundation back, and then give myself some time to establish and figure out the things that I was messing up. And so that's what it ended up doing for me, because I could sell even if I couldn't get everybody else going because the market was going down. And this is before Fannie Mae, by the way. So that was what was going on. I did that. And then that kind of got me back focused on, okay, then I was running kind of two lanes. I need to grow this business and sell real estate to pay the bills. So keep selling until I pay the bills while I built the other. And then, we just kind of lived that lifestyle of like, you do your job during the day, but you build your business at the kitchen table, know? And so we're constantly around here working or doing things because that's just how we've done for years.
Absolutely. So walk us through when you started to scale up and you're like, okay, I need to open up another location here in Hampton Roads. What brought you to that, precipice right there?
So, you fast forward a little bit and it's 2013, we opened up First Class Real Estate. So you go through a couple years of, we did Fannie Mae and stuff like that. And then we moved on to open a real estate office, and we did that. And we took like 10 of us or whatever it was, and we built a 6,000 square foot office. Don't do that. And so, spent a bunch of money for 10 people. It was the dumbest thing ever. But again, ego is just driving everything. It's so crazy. Your ego wants to cost you money all the time. So anyway, we have this building and we're doing it. And I run into a guy named Toby Harris. So he owns Movement Mortgage. I run into him in the grocery store, right? And so the Fannie Mae, I'm living here in this house. This is all going on. We don't have Fannie Mae, and we have this office and open a brand new business, and we're kind of just starting from scratch. And I meet with him, and he says, he goes through a couple different things with me, and he ends up getting me to a place where it's about recruiting. And we'd end up meeting. He was meeting with me kind of for free every week, and we meet, and he'd always ask me, how many agents do you have? How many agents do you have? How many agents do you have? And I'd always come back with the answer and then segue into something else. Oh, we're at 20, and months of the same question and the same answer. And, because I come back with something else I was working on. I'm over here in La La Land instead of, he's asking me how many agents do you have, because I need to work on that. And he would ask questions that went on. And so anyway, he is the one that helped do that. And then he said, what's your model? And we had this long debate where he was probably the dumbest guy in the world for, a couple of weeks. He's a dumb billionaire. These billionaires are really stupid. And so, we're having a conversation, and he's like, what's your model? I said, I've already told you, this is our model. We offer this to the agents and this, that, and the other. No. Yeah, yes, it is. It's just like this company and this. So what I was thinking of was everything was on the surface. But what he wanted me to do was another model that was scalable. And in doing that, again, it's crazy because like two things are happening at once. I'm telling you this story, but you can't see this unfolding at the time. We're in this dining room over here, and I'm building out this model that he's talking about, but the model then turns into a corporate model because you asked about how many offices. So now we set up, and my aunt comes over, and I said, I need some help. I need to scale this. How do I do this? And she said she worked at the franchise business. Now, remember, this is all the way back in 2000 to all the way now. We're fast forwarding. It's 2017. And so, and she's, and I said, well, so what's next? And she said, well, you set up corporate offices. And when you set those up, then you'll set up a franchise business. And I kept asking, what's next? What's next? What's next? And that gave me the vision for the future. This is like the first time ever. It's all in 2017. The first time I'm finally looking to where the puck is going. I'm finally looking down the road. And so she's like, what's next? And she tells me, here's how you do the franchise. And we have an area rep. And so this whole thing, I now understand this whole franchise. I'm in the real estate business, but this franchise. So now I'm like, I got it. And so, so I get this, and now I meet with Toby, and he's like, okay, what's your model? I go, all right, I tell you what, here's the model. And we get with this guy, he takes our whole P&L of our business, formulates it out into a model. And so now I have a model. This is what it costs you per agent. This is what it costs you per admin. This is what it costs you for this. And we had a bunch of services that were too complicated. So then I go meet with John Hewitt, the owner of Liberty Tax. And so because he's with my aunt, he says, and I go to tell him, so funny. I go to tell him the model, and I'm excited. I finally got the model. I've solved this dumb billionaire's question, and so I've got the answer. And I can't wait to tell this guy. So we're sitting at breakfast up here, and I tell him, I say, here's the model. We're gonna do blah blah blah, blah. And he goes, nope, won't work. Too complicated. I was like, because we have all these line items of these things. He's like, no, it's got to be simple. And so he says, it's simple. simple scales, fancy fails, and so you've already heard it 100 times, but it just didn't apply until it applied. And so we had to simplify our model to make it go and do that. So now we've built out these other corporate offices. We figured out we have offices and we don't have a model. Does that make sense to you? Like, do you understand? Like, we're that backwards that we're going and growing because I've got to get agents, and I'm getting agents in because that's what he keeps asking me to do. And I need offices because I need offices to get in agents, but I don't have a model for how that's going to grow and scale. I'm just getting agents. And so anyway, all that goes on, and then that's what it turns into our franchise model.
Wow.
What's been the biggest challenge of going to a local company to well over 100 locations nationwide? What's been your biggest challenge, Rhyan?
Motivating people will always be a challenge. And to grow and scale, you're always going to need people. So the every Fortune 500 company has people. They have more people, more employees. They have these big buildings with their names on them and all that because they have people, right? And they have good dynamic leaders. And when you're trying to grow and scale, you've got to figure out, how are you going to motivate these people to do it? How are you going to create a clear vision for them? The problem is every 90 days, the business is changing. Yeah. So the vision feels like it's changing. So to juggle we have employees that are at a company, that are at a corporate office, right? And they're used to working for the agent. And we're saying, no, you don't understand. You don't work for the agent anymore. You work for this franchise owner. They're like, okay. Agent comes up, can you print this for me? And I'm like, no. I know, I appreciate you want to give them good customer service, but we can't work that way. So what I had to do was I had to build out a whole separate building and move my 10 employees from that office to another office, so they realized there was a separation. They still didn't understand because they would still go back and forth to the other offices. And I was like, can you just imagine? These people are going, well, I started this company. Well, what company? No, well, you work for such franchising. I had to set up a whole new payroll and move them up. You work at this company. And so then I would say, which company paid you? And so you can imagine this is complicated for them to fully understand that they're working for someone like, no, we only charge them this amount of money for the things we provided them. They're not paying for you to go do that. And they're like, yeah, but that's what I did when I was, but the marketing, I know you marketed for that office, but now you market for all these offices. And they go, what offices? I was like, well, the ones that are coming. I built out this 12,000 square foot office, and I moved my 10 employees over there for franchises, and I hadn't sold the first franchise yet. So now but I had to move it so they understood. Otherwise, and they were just going to keep going to the employee and asking them for this thing. And then there was an argument with them because they thought, well, they always did that. So what I was supposed to, I don't know, figure it out. I'm not billing you for that anymore. Yeah. So now you have to, do that. And so that was a huge struggle.
What do you feel entrepreneurs these days, what their biggest problem is of why people are either being successful in their business ventures or they're in a place where they're stuck?
Is this like video where anybody will be able to get access to me? Can I be hidden and protected for the answer that I'm getting ready to get you? Okay, because somebody will probably throw their phone if they're watching this on their phone, or they're gonna probably hunt me down and try and kill me for the answer to this question. Okay, all right, but the biggest problem that I see 99.9% of the time. I literally was on a call at 10 o'clock last night helping a guy with a business thing. And he says, all right, I got an idea. I'm going to go do car detailing down in Florida. And he said, I'm going to charge $1,000 a car. And he sends me a picture of the car. And I said, no. What's wrong? I'm getting $1,000 a car to be able to do that. I said, no, won't do it. He says, all right, I got a moving company. I'm going to help these moving companies do this moving, and I'm going to charge, and I'll make, $3,000 a move. And I'm going to go load up the boxes and go do the move. And I said, he's like, and I'll just do a ton of them. I'll make a ton of money. So he's like, I can do a car and I'll make $1,000 a car. That's $1,000 a day. If I do 30 cars, that's $30,000 a month. Well, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with it?
Time.
What do you mean? What's wrong with the time? What do you mean? He's making $30,000 a month. That's more than the majority of people in the world don't make $30,000 a month.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he's an entrepreneur. It's his business. What's wrong with it?
Investment, too much time spent doing that.
Too much time. Mm-hmm. Too much time. But if you know that that's the problem, if you know that that's the time, so how is he going to solve this problem? Because this is the problem that persists. He can make $1,000, or he's going to pay somebody else to do it so he can have time. but they're not going to do as good of a job as me. Okay? Guess what that means? That's I can't get them to do a good job. If they could do a good job, I could build a big business, and that's my problem is the people, right? No, it's your leadership. You don't have the systems, you don't have the process, you don't have the checklist, you don't have the vision to tell them, well, what happens if this customer comes back and does his car with us again next month? Well, what happens if he doesn't? Right? So that's how important we have to be doing a good job for these people to come back. See, now that's the leader's job to do it. Instead, he's thinking, all right, how cheap can I pay you to do this so I can keep the most of the $1,000, right? Or I'm going to do it and I'm going to keep $1,000 myself. But see, that's an easy one when it's not you and you look at it as somebody else, but everybody does it all day long, everywhere, as they go do a job to make money, and then they want to scale that. And it's very, very, very difficult to do it. You have to let the other guy make more money, and nobody wants to do that. If the other guy makes more money, you're winning. Now you're an entrepreneur. Yeah. If you're making more money than everyone else, you're going to go brag to your buddies and you're going to pay the bar tab, and then those people are going to eventually leave and go somewhere else. Probably come with me.
I get this question a lot, and maybe you can better answer it because I don't have a good answer for you. Should I get into real estate?
Should you get into real estate?
No.
Your answer should be yes. Yes.
Well, we already know that why I'm in real estate. Thanks to you. But
I think we were sitting in these chairs.
Yes.
Weren't we?
Yes, you pitched me. You got me to quit selling timeshare. It come work for you. Not a bad place to pitch me.
I thought I was working for you for a while.
Yeah. Hey, you had a machine at that point. A lot of people want to get into real estate. The best answer I always tell them is, what's their why? Because a lot of people, I feel, just want to get into real estate because they think you'll be a gazillionaire.
Yep.
Right away. It's fast money.
Well, you're not helping with this video.
But I mean, obviously,
real estate business is the smallest business I have.
Yep. Yep. So, I mean, what would you say to someone say, hey, I want it, should I get into real estate?
Well, there's nothing wrong with getting into real estate. I mean, real estate's a great business. I mean, the flexibility, the amount of money you can make in a per transaction, and the ability to scale a business and the levels of it. I mean, that's hard to answer for anybody individually. I mean, but there's plenty of opportunity in it. And so, how fast can they go through the systems and process to scale up what they're capable of, right? Because at some point in time, Gary Keller was just an agent that got a license and hired somewhere, and then he moved to, his level. And now you can see that in all these others. And we make icons out of the people that did that, but anybody can do that. And I think that's the better question is like, well, do you have what they have? Do you have the ability to do what they have? Because then that's going to answer your why. And whether they use real estate as the vehicle or not is just a decision for them. But now when they go in with that why, as you brought up, of what they're envisioning and what they're capable of, and answering that question, are they capable of doing it? Then they're going to answer it every day by fulfilling it or not. And then that's going to be the true test of whether they should have gone into real estate or not.
100%. I love that answer.
So, Ryan, you're a person who went from one agent to a one-person company. Now you have a nationwide company, over 100 locations across the nation. So clearly you know how to scale a business. So if you had to give one piece of advice to a person who's looking to scale a business, what's that one piece of advice you would give to them?
The answer to it, and I kind of alluded to it a little bit as we've gone through this. Lonnie mentored me, then Ray mentored me, and then Toby mentored me. And so I've gone through mentors. And the funny thing is that was over from a period of time from 2008 till maybe 2 or 3 years ago when I stopped mentoring with them. But so I don't even know how many years that is, but it's a long time. And so my point with it is if you'd have asked me up until maybe the point of Toby, I would have said, I hate mentors. I don't like paying coaches. I'm paying a coach I don't even like coaches because coaches is a self-employed job. If they said, I can get $1,000 a client, that's no different than the car dealership thing to me. But anyway, so you need a mentor. And I'm anti-mentor. And I know people are going to watch this and be like, no, he's just trying to sell something or whatever it is. But the answer to it really is you can't change the way you think. It took me weeks and months and years of arguing with the billionaire because if I didn't argue with him and keep going and showing up and having him, I'd be exactly where I was. If I didn't have the mentor with Lonnie when I got into real estate, I'd be back into the plumbing industry. If I didn't have the mentor with Ray, which Ray, all of them added at a different level, right? And so, I'd say I use Ray and Toby as I call it rich dad and richer dad, because you had rich dad, poor dad, is because they have very different styles. Systematically, one wants more time, one wants to scale and grow and do more. And so one's more systematized and one is more, intuition based. So, so they have different values, and I get to be the kind of the hybrid of both of them. But the ideal is, a mentor is going to help you, but it's got to be a mentor that you're going to be able to trust, that you're going to be able to follow. I was doing a coaching call with one of our franchisees earlier, and this is kind of the storyline of what happens in any mentor relationship. So in the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, all right, y'all read it before? Yeah. There's a story where the guy he's in war, right? And I can't even remember who it was, so don't come down too hard on me on this. But it's basically like the president tells him and writes him a letter. Here's what you have to do, and if you do this, it'll end the war. Go up here, give you a high ground. You'll win the war. It'll be over. We'll save lots of lives, right? And they find out later that he didn't do that, and they had a letter from the president, and it was nice, but it would have been harsh in the context of their saying it, but he was really actually pretty nice about it. But he never sent it. And they asked him, why didn't you send this letter reprimanding this guy for not disobeying your orders and now making the war go on longer and killing more lives? I mean, that's a huge deal of what that guy did just by not listening to you. He said, well, it's easy. I can see that guy down there, his best friend next to him is dying on a bed. Somebody's bleeding. There's bullets flying past his head. And he thinks, I'm the president sitting up here in the Oval Office, and I have no idea what it's like down there. I probably wouldn't have listened to me either. And that's kind of the key part of any mentorship. That guy was giving him good advice. That guy could see from high up down what he needed to do. But the problem is when you're in the middle of the war, it's so hard to just blindly trust somebody else is going to tell you what you've got to do, and then to go in and execute and do it. And even if they tell you, it's a one-line sentence. They're going to hear one line in this and say, oh, okay, I just got to go get into real estate. This is going to happen. It's never that. It's this journey that goes on. That's why I don't mind. I'll tell people all the time. I give them advice. I tell them, here's what you should do. And I go, it won't end there. We're either going to have a relationship that's going to continue on because you're going to need more, or you're going to stop at some point, just like I could have. I could have stopped with Lonnie. I could have stopped with Ray. I could stop with Toby. But there's always more you can keep adding on and growing. And so you've got to keep developing. It doesn't have to change people, but there's levels to all of this stuff, because once you've got it, it's not over. You're not done, because it's a journey. It's not a destination.
Love it. So usually anytime we shoot episode, Ryan, we no limits, nothing off, out of bounds. We allow you to ask us any questions. Anything goes. Anything. Ask me and Chris both one question apiece.
Huh.
I think you'd want to ask us.
Man, I want to prepare for that one.
Start with Chris. Anything you want.
Why are you doing what you're doing right now?
Why am I doing what I'm doing right now? It's because I want to create a legacy for future generations. Why I started in real estate, was kind of just for me, to be honest with you, because I just wanted money to pay the bills, similar as you. But why I transitioned to what I'm doing right now is because I know what I'm doing now can have an everlasting effect. This is something that can last, when I pass on eventually. This is something, future generations, they can touch. And
what are you passing on? The knowledge, the business setup, finances?
Everything. Yep, the knowledge. That's one thing I'm definitely going to implement to future generations that come after me. The business setup, like you mentioned, the houses too, passing homes from generation to generation, creating generational wealth. So that's really why I do what I do now.
That's awesome.
Is the same question?
No.
All right.
No.
Smile at me. Sir.
How much is ever going to be enough?
I know this may sound crazy because I've been on my entrepreneurial journey for about 2 years. And I think I've realized, and I'm thankful to be surrounded by people like yourself and other people, that it's at some point you're going to want your time. At some point you're going to want your time, because you get to a certain level of money or comfort of lifestyle that you just want time, because we can't buy any of that, right? It's an asset they're not selling. So I think that a dollar amount my personality and the way I'm wired, that it's not really a dollar amount that's ever going to make it enough. It's just going to be constantly pivoting to something that fulfills that itch for building and creating something that is bigger than me. And so I don't know if there'll ever be enough as far as money, because I'm not honestly driven by money, more so as a vision, because I'm fortunate and real estate pays very well. So if you have a big vision in real estate and you're able to achieve that vision or even come close to it, the money usually follows.
Mm-hmm.
So enough to me is just making sure my family's taken care of, but when I get to buy back my time. So that's when it enough, when I don't no longer have to wake up with an alarm clock. I don't have to answer my phone unless I want to. I think that's when I'll say that's enough.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, sir. So Ryan's you got a lot going on. You went through plumber, real estate, team leader, national franchise, real estate mogul, invested in commercial property, residential property, making a big move. What's next for Ryan Finch? When's enough for Ryan Finch?
Well, I guess it's what's enough is depends on what you want. You know, my daily life is different now, and it's sustainable. I look at all of the things that I have as investments, and so you know what happened after COVID is all the things that we had shot up in value, but they had really low interest rates. And what I found is if you cashed in things or did different things, that where the puck is going is interest rates are going up. And the reason that matters is because then you can take capital. And so it would look something like this. If in 2019 you wanted to buy a car, you say, hey, Ryan, I got a $50,000 car. Will you loan it to me? And I'd say, yeah, sure. How's 6% sound? You know, and you say, I don't know, that's a little high. I mean, that 3%, I mean, some car places are even doing no financing, you know, so 6%, that's pretty high. I mean, do you really want me to do that? And so now, you know, we all smile and you know, laugh at that because we're like, man, if you got 6% today from somebody giving you personal money, you'd be over the moon happy, right? And so, but now it's like, no, charge 12% or and points and that's still a fair deal because they can go make enough money because there's enough money in circulation that you can roll and things are going up in value through inflation that they can make money doing that. And so they can afford to pay you that and then have their asset be able to go up in value and they can make money. So their ability to make money with the money has gone up and the interest rates has given a caveat for that. And so, you know, it's a huge value in being able to manage finances in a way that you can be anywhere in the world and do whatever it is you want and have the quality of time and the money becomes your employee at a very high rate of return.
So basically what you're saying is the money's in the money.
I've been telling you guys that for a long time. I just didn't explain it the way I just did there.
So right now it's kind of you're in the business of deploying your capital, getting a return, and enjoying life.
Well, everything essentially is set up on a return, right? So you're going to put your time into something and you're looking to get a rate of return on it. And then you're going to have money in it. And so people look at it again. I don't look at businesses with being self-employed where you're in there working it day to day because that's no longer an investment. That's a job, right? And so the money has to be in it and then it gives you a return. So if you have $1 million business and it's making you $20,000 a month, you'd have to decide, would I rather have $20,000 a month or $1 million in my hand? And it works out the same. If you have a rental property that's making you $2,000 a month or you can sell it for $200,000, again, you're going to decide, would you rather have $2,000 a month or $200,000? This is the decision that's going on all the time. And what I'm saying is you can cash in some of them and then you can turn around and put that money in getting a greater return on some of the other. But again, that won't be forever. That'll be a season. I don't know what's going to change that. It could be the election. It could be interest rate change. Anything can change. So you can't just go all the way that way either. So you need to have some businesses. You need to have some finances, you know, that are operating that way. But ultimately, if you have money in a stock and it's paying you a dividend, if you have rental properties, if you have businesses that are operating without you, and you have money that's making money, I mean, there's all different avenues in which you can grow and scale. And if you have money in money, the return is the return. But if you have money in businesses, you can put effort and energy into it to scale up and get a greater return on your business and money. And if you invest it in people, then you can have a greater return by investing in them as well. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we really appreciate you taking the time to kind of give us all those nuggets and your journey. If people want to connect with you, learn about what First Class Real Estate's all about, what's the best way to reach out to you?
Yeah, so our website, firstclassre.com, they can go there and find out all kinds of things between our franchise or join as an agent, buying and selling homes. Other than that, I have a Facebook account. I don't play in a lot of other accounts. Like, I don't do Instagram or any of that other stuff because I just don't want something else I got to keep up with. So, ultimately.
Absolutely. So Rhyan Finch on Facebook, firstclassrealestate.com.
Yeah.
Awesome.
We appreciate that. We appreciate you joining us, Ryan.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You have a great day.
Congrats to all you guys are doing.
Let's talk
assets.
assets.